recording now.
She told me that she liked me. Yeah. She told me that she liked me, complimented on my Nikes. I told her that she dope, but me and her are so unlikely. You're just too gorgeous, babe. I don't need random dudes fighting me. They just too jealous out here, especially when they know we out here. I don't need that attention. Your girlfriend like, no, he didn't. I don't need no Martin Lawrence and Pamela rendition. But anyways, we can kick it, just no real commitment. And I hope you in shape if you even plan on going the distance. Knock, 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 who is this? Oh my God, this girl is vicious. You look better in real life, you shitting on all your pictures. When you been all my life, can't believe we just beginners. This course is for advanced swimmers, we in here with fishes. Jumping in the water, this ain't even what I ordered. I'm scared to look at the price, I just hope that I can't afford her. And if I can't, then I guess I'll throw her back in the water. What would Jesus do? Get poisson just off his aura.
All right. This is another podcast with myself, Moma, and we have some special guests today. And co-hosting with, introduce yourself.
Rude Boy with special guest. Special
Incredible
guest.
Casanova.
One more time.
Incredible Casanova.
Great.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for bringing me on. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. So yeah, we had a podcast yesterday. My good friend who's been staying over with me kind of co-hosted with Rude Boy and did it with Traveler Kai. It was a fantastic podcast. I only listened to it when I got back this morning. It was great. So, my friend, cousin, brother, what you would call him, is a bit of a wild guy, but he's a good guy. We sharpen each other. But anyway, we've got Incredible Casanova, another fantastic guy that can offer great insights into the black man dating, in North America and indeed globally, because Incredible has touched so many different countries. So, Incredible, you want to just kind of let us know a little bit about, I guess your starting point and kind of take it from there, game style and so on and so forth.
Okay. Well, I'd say my game style to start things off is very forward. Very direct. I have a sense of entitlement. If I go to a venue and I see women, I feel that I'm entitled to have them or at least have a conversation. And I think you saw some of that the last time I was in Tampa. What was it, back in November? So, I would just approach women at that venue we were at and just say, hey, why don't you buy me a drink? And, get a reaction out of them, right? It's not always going to be the case that they actually end up buying you a drink, unless you happen to be in Norway, where I did use that line. And, lo and behold, the girl actually bought me a drink. But, it's just a sense that, you see something that you want, you should go out and actually get it. So I think if I had to summarize my game style, it's similar to anything else in life. I You just have to go out, put yourself out there, accept that things aren't gonna go your way every time. Many times you will fail, but you have to just get up and keep going because ultimately, those that actually go out and make the effort are the ones that get something in return.
Great, great. When did you say games started for you? Did it begin before maybe you discovered any online forums, or was it kind of in its budding state? I mean, for myself, it's been happening for a long time. I won't say it was refined, but I've been doing road game before the internet really jumped off. Has
I
that
get
been
it.
the same for yourself? Like, how did games start for you?
It's always been a part of my life. I grew up in Washington D.C. and I was going to the clubs from a young age. 17, 18, trying to figure out how that worked. Trying to cut in line and see who could hook me up with some drinks or something. I was always that type of guy, always looking for that shortcut, for that hack. And I just went about my life, went on through college, and eventually started getting into travel. I first started traveling just stateside, so I'd be going to like the West Coast back in its golden era, like the early 2000s. And I that time airfare was like really, really cheap. That's when you could just fly to like from the East Coast to California for like $200 and rent a car for like nothing. And I'd just be out there with friends of mine that I knew, having a good time. And then eventually, I was dating this girl at one point who had put me on to Central America. And I took my first trip. Well, actually, no, I took my first trip to Brazil with one of my boys. I was 25 years old. That was like my first big international trip, and that really just opened my eyes because um, we didn't do like your typical type of tourist experience where you just stay in a hotel and you know uh, kind of replicate your life at home in a sense. We actually hung out with a guy who lived there, and all his friends were locals, and um, that really just kind of opened my eyes. Like, wow, there's people that just the everything, race, all that stuff that I was accustomed to experiencing in America is just a whole different ball game overseas. So after that experience, and then dating this girl, and I decided to just go out on my own and head over to Costa Rica and Panama, and from there I went over to South America and spent several months just traveling and meeting people. And what that did was really push me outside of my comfort zone and get a lot of experience. Met a lot of people that I otherwise wouldn't have had an opportunity to meet. So when I came back, I was telling my friends about these experiences, and they just it just sounds like you're an alien. Basically, they just have no way of really relating to what you're saying. It's just nothing like your typical American life. And a friend of mine, he actually took to what I was saying, and getting on the internet and trying to find out more. And that's when he discovered Rush's writings, and he told me about him. And then I checked him out, and he had done something similar, where he had traveled in South America. And I was like, man, this is like pretty much more or less kind of the kind of things I experienced. Not in terms of our personal results as far as game or anything, but just kind of the context, how things were different. And that's when I started getting into the game kind of community, the sub forums, and just kind of hearing what other people were saying and their approaches. But I'd say up until that point, I kind of already developed as a man, but it was still good information. It was still good to hear what other guys were doing and kind of their own stories and how they got to where they ended up.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that really set you apart is that you backed it with so many pictures. Like when you came in, I swear your rep count just jumped through the roof because you flooded it with like actual pictures, so no one could even
Yeah,
be like,
crazy.
yeah. I was thinking, okay, no one can even say this guy was making up because you had pictures with you and Solange. I think there was a picture. There was some story when you said you grabbed her bum or slapped her, and then the bouncer was after you. So I'm like, wow, this guy's got some cojones on him. You know what I mean? So definitely,
Yeah.
I was like, wow, like, because images always can tell 1,000 words. An image is worth 1,000 words, and you had maybe 1,000 images. Well, not that much, but quite a few. So definitely, I can
I
understand.
sorry, Mo. I got a question.
Sure.
Casanova, obviously, 10 minutes in, you speak well, like a white guy. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Just joking. Just joking. No, but obviously, you kind of sound like me, to be honest with you. But you have a lot of confidence, and I just rewinding back. Obviously, you're born in the States, and obviously, you're a very you're a dark skinned gentleman,
Yeah.
but yet you've just come across in the first 10 minutes like nothing's a problem. Where does this confidence came? You said from an early age, 17, you were partying and stuff. Was it, I mean, friends, or was it you have an older brother, or was it your parents, or like where does this inner confidence come from?
I would say, a large part of it is, due to my own family upbringing. So my family's from Eritrea, so it's a country with a war-torn history in East Africa. Um, you know, they they didn't grow up in the same kind of context that we have in America, with race and all this stuff. I mean, pretty much everyone there is black, and you don't identify yourself by race. You're just a person. Everybody's the same for the most part. So they didn't grow up raising me with that kind of belief system. That you're black, and because that's the case, this is what you have to do, and this is what you have to think. All they did was encourage me to work hard, do well in school, and just live a positive life. So I wasn't really growing up with the kind of attitude where I have to make excuses or I have to justify what I'm doing. I'm just going to go out and do it. And a lot of it was up to me because nobody in my family. I'm the oldest child. Nobody in my family had experienced American life before me. So I was finding things out the first time. Had to go and do that myself, and then figure out what worked and what didn't work.
Okay, and you're born in the States, or you came here when you were young?
I was born over there, but I came here when I was like 2 months old, so
Oh, okay, you're
practically
Yeah, you're
American. Yeah,
American. You're
yeah.
American.
That's cool. Do you find that there's been some discussions and so on and so forth, and people trying to really, break it down to certain components. So, do you find, because we've met obviously, and
Yeah.
you're a dark skinned male, um, does have you found that to be a pro or a plus? Because you like white lizards. That's one of your delicacies. So, do you find that aids or it's a detriment to your hunting, your skin tone?
I mean, it depends on the girl, right? Like a lot of white people in America are kind of accustomed to befriending and dating white people. To the extent that um, it's a plus. I mean, it I am different, so and I'm different in a lot of senses, not just racially or complexion, but also life experience. A lot of time I have a lot more to offer than your typical American guy of whatever race. So I just leverage what my strengths are and use that to my advantage. And I think that's how anyone should be. Don't focus on the things you can't control. Focus on what you can control, and really try to play that to your utmost advantage,
I mean,
and work really hard, and try to get what you going after.
yeah, this is what I agree with. It's just that a lot of people have come back to that, the skin tone, and me and Rude Boy, we mentioned it in the first podcast that I think black is black pretty much. Whether you're light in complexion, whether you're, as they call it, brown skin, like a medium tone, or whether you're a darker complexion towards. I always use Wesley Snipes as an example. If you're into that realm, I still feel that regardless of whether you're a Boris Kodjoe or you're more of a Wesley Snipes, you're still viewed as it's either on or off. It's a binary. It's a one is on or zero is off. There's no, well, I think the only people who notice it are actually within the black community. So would you find that's an issue, or you don't even pay that any mind when you go and do what you got to do?
Yeah, that's the last thing on my mind. I find that's a very localized type of issue that you really find within the black community. I mean, as far as white people are concerned, we all look the same, right?
Yep. Yep.
The police officer doesn't have a box that says light skin versus dark skin. You're just black, right? So that's just how it is. You go to a job interview, anything in life, you're just black, and embrace it. Don't try to dwell on what you can't get out of that situation. Look at what you can get, and there's a lot of opportunity. I mean, this is the best time in history to be a black person. Especially in the West. So try to just take that and take it as far as you can go.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Brilliant.
Okay. I just had a quick question. The When you went to Brazil, could any of your friends, you or your friend, were you fluent or conversational in Brazilian Portuguese?
Not at all, not at all. And the funny thing about that is, before going there, man, I thought it was gonna be like that Snoop and Pharrell video. Have you seen it? The one Beautiful?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've
Yeah, so
seen
I
that.
thought it was gonna be a bunch of fat asses on the beach and girls just dying to come talk to me because I've got a U.S. passport, and it was nothing like that, man. That's what really opened my eyes. That there was just this whole other country that was totally outside of U.S. influence in a sense. I mean, they just did not really follow a lot of the things that are culturally relevant to us. They have their own music, their own movies, their own TV shows, and their own language, and their own sense of what's cool. And I figured, I realized that, man, I've got to become more open minded, and it made me wish that I hadn't traveled around the U.S. so much before then, because I definitely had the money to go international earlier than I did, but I just didn't have the uh, the mindset.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Incredible. Do you care to reveal where you're living now, or is that
Yeah, so I live in the Midwest. um, Not sure if I should get more specific than that, but
okay?
it is very different from Washington D.C. for sure.
And how are you liking it so far?
It's good, man. I mean, there's still a lot of nice places in America, with good quality of life. If you've got a good job and the women are the type of women that you go for, um, it's nice, man. It can be a nice situation. It's just you still got to go out and work for things. Nothing's gonna come at you on a silver platter. And if you want to continue living the player lifestyle versus just having a girl, being in a relationship, there's going to be work that comes with that. There's always trade-offs.
Okay.
Okay.
What's your fashion style like? Like I saw what you wore and it kind of fitted in with the stuff that you mentioned that I could imagine that you go out with. I mean, some guys might go out more hip hop ish, sagging jeans, hoodies, boxer shorts showing. Maybe that's more of a younger crowd. Some might rock a do rag, some might rock a few grills. I've seen a few grills here when I go out, which is at Mouth Metal. Some
Yeah.
people rock more of that edgy hippie stuff. I think there's a chatter that says he goes around with crotchless jeans. I'm not sure how that works, but so be it. And or ripped jeans and glasses with just the frame. So what style would you say is a style that you recommend to others? Like what style do you use when you're going out? Do you change it according to a venue?
I think it varies from person to person. There's some guys that do the hipster thing very well, and kind of like the skateboard look, or I've seen a whole lot of different types of guys do very well with their own style. I just say, really try to take your style and represent it well. Pick the best quality clothes you can, and it's good to do that because I feel that if you buy something that's good quality, it's going to last for one. I mean, for me, I like timeless clothes. I like clothes that patterns that uh, are not going to go out of style. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, for me, it's just like in the wintertime, knowing how to layer correctly. Um, I'll wear in the summertime, I'll do V-necks and just well-fitted pair of jeans, or I'll rock a blazer, and it really depends on the kind of place that I'm going out to, or you know, uh, just what mood I'm in. But basically, I do like to dress, quite well.
Okay, okay, that's good. So you've also we also kind of went along a theme of trying places that aren't too far for those who are listening and want to go outside of the continental U.S. And my cousin mentioned it on the previous podcast, and that was also highlighted by Traveler Kai and so on and so forth about just making small steps. So you've made one of the small steps that's never really appealed to me per se, just because of existing prejudices that I've had, but I would be
Yeah.
very interested in going. And what I'm talking about is actually going to Mexico. Mexico's pretty close to the U.S. because it's Central American. It's pretty close to those living on the West Coast or in the mid, say Southwest, like Texas and so on and so forth. So some people say Mexican lizards are like bam, bam, bam. They really like black men. What's your take on that? Because you've been there. I don't know if it's more than one time. What's your take on Mexico?
I'm a big fan of Mexico, and I've gone there frequently to different parts of the country. I want to make a distinction because, like what you're talking about, about being close and that sort of thing. I would say that fits with those, resort destinations. Your Cancun, Puerto Vallarta, those type of places that really get a lot of snowbirds. People from up north just want to get some sunshine in the winter. They'll just go down there and party. Everything's catered to them on the resort. But the interior of Mexico, like Mexico City, that's a whole world that is still relatively untouched by gringos. So it's a city that is by some measures twice as large as New York City. Has 20 million people crammed in this huge valley, and there definitely is a distinct lack of black people. And to my surprise, it's been a very good experience going down there. In one instance, on one trip, I used Tinder on my most recent trip, and it was like a gold mine, like something I just did not expect. Matches left and right. Um, in one case, a young girl, about 22 years old. I think I showed you the pictures, and
You didn't show
she,
me.
yeah, next one of these days, man, we'll have to meet up, and
Okay.
I have to provide the evidence as I'm known to do. And yeah, she came in a taxi. It was raining. I said, come through in a taxi. Went downstairs, paid the taxi drivers like $6. Went right up to my hotel room, talked for a little bit, smashed, and then she was on her way out. And all I paid was that initial taxi fare, and that was it. I mean, that's how thirsty the girls down there were. And every day that I was there, I was hooking up with a new girl. Um, and that same day, I had two girls. So this is something that a lot of people wouldn't know otherwise, because in the U.S., the portrayal of Mexicans and African American relations is through the lens of competition. Like, oh well, the Mexicans are starting to rise in numbers, and they're going to take jobs from black people, and they're going to have more political clout as minorities. And you just think that there's all this tension and discord, and as soon as you get down there, you're going to get attacked by a mob or something. But it's nothing like that, man. It's a very nice place to go, and Mexico City is where the elites live. So there's the upscale areas. A lot of the people you meet there are pretty well educated, well dressed, well traveled, and very good contacts, man. So I encourage everyone to really check out places like Mexico City. I have Guadalajara on my list. There's a few guys that have been out there, said good things. Monterrey, I hear, is pretty good. But yeah, Mexico for sure is a good spot.
Is there any danger factor involved in there? Like, Some people, I used to read in the news when I lived in Canada. They'd always say this and that. But I met a black American guy from Philly when I was in the Dominican Republic, and he said he'd been to Mexico. And I said, "Hey, what about the danger they're kidnapping tourists?" And he pinched me on my forearm. I'm not sure why he did that, but he just did it and said, "Dude, like," he said, "you're black. Like, they ain't kidnapping shit." That's what he said. Because he's been there quite a few times, so he said that. So would you concur with what he's saying, that it's not dangerous per se, and it's even less dangerous the fact if you're going there as a black guy?
It's not dangerous at all. I mean, it's unfortunate because the way Mexico is portrayed in the U.S. media is, you've got just pretty much a handful of issues: illegal immigration, uh, the the drug cartels, and then spring break. You know what I mean? And it would be like, portraying the U.S. around the world as, pretty much just Detroit and gangs and stuff that really just makes up a very small aspect of the overall U.S. culture. So in Mexico City, and this is something you can even Google yourself. It's actually said to be 3 times safer than Washington D.C. It's deep in the interior of the country, whereas the dangerous areas are along the U.S. border because of the drug trade. The U.S. has the largest consumer market for illegal drugs, and those areas, those geographic areas where rivaling cartels are vying for space are very dangerous. Because it affects their profits, it affects their bottom line. So in the case of Mexico City, where Mexican drug demand is nowhere nearly as high as the United States, you don't really have that problem. There isn't this very lucrative market for illegal drugs. So the cartels, I mean, they may have a very limited presence in places like that, but that's also where the elites live, the political class, and you've got heavy military presence encircling the city, so it's very safe. I mean, I've walked out in Mexico City by myself at various hours in the night. Not once did I feel unsafe.
Okay, is
Sorry there. That's kind of funny because one of my favorite movies is Man on Fire,
Oh
Denzel
yeah, with
Washington
Denzel.
there,
Yeah.
and then obviously they paint that picture. And I like what you said about media because I think the media in Canada too, we get this BS where Toronto is the greatest city in the world, and according to the
Y-
Economist magazine, and then I think a lot of people, or not a lot of people, the media tends to, they want to keep you here, right? They don't want you
Yeah.
to travel to certain places because it's dangerous. You go to Mexico, you can't drink the water, you
Right.
can't do that. I know my mom years ago, she never wanted to go there. Now she's been almost 10 times, every city, every resort.
Hmm.
They're obviously a snowbird, my parents, right? So
Yeah.
the media, I don't really, to be honest with you, I don't really keep up. I don't really watch TV. I'm pretty
Right.
much on my iPad, and I think your message is, loud and clear. Don't buy into the propaganda, right? Just if you want to go somewhere, just go. And obviously Mexico now, you piqued my interest, and I will add to that a friend of mine who I spoke to about in the first podcast. He's obviously West African, dark guy, and tours Europe, and he's done Ibiza in the summer, and these guys. He's dealt with some serious looking European girls, and recently he was in Playa del Carmen for the EDM festival. Did you know about that?
Yeah. I actually went there last year. Last year.
Okay, well, he said he had I mean, same thing along what you just said. Basically, he said the love he got there was the best he's ever gotten, and this guy is well traveled. Okay, so
Yeah.
piqued my interest. I mean, I put it on my calendar for next year. But actually, this year, Formula One. I'm a big Formula One guy. They're in Mexico City, I think, towards the end of the year. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of looking at that date. I think it's October, November. So I guess anybody, yourself, or you guys, if you want to meet up there, maybe I might be there in Mexico City, Formula One. So yeah.
Tech ya
Yeah.
señales.
Yeah, if you go there for Formula One, yeah, definitely just you're a fan, so obviously that's good, and you'll go out there and have a good time. But in general, I try to avoid cities during big events. It draws a lot of newcomers, and it's just always, you never know if the experience you're having is really a normal experience.
That's
So,
yeah, yeah.
but
That is true.
that in your case you're a fan, so go out there as a fan. But in a certain sense, it's kind of good that people have these misconceptions about Mexico, because for now Mexico City's great. So as long as you kind of discourage a lot of folks who might otherwise ruin it, then that's a good thing.
Okay, I have a quick question, and is Spanish needed for here or not really? For Mexico, I'm talking about.
It definitely helps. If you're gaming, you know, with something like Tinder, what I do is, first of all, I usually stay at the same hotel in the center, and Tinder, what it allows you to do is, search a certain mile radius. So if you choose like 5 to 10 miles, the funny thing about how Mexico City is set up is the slums are like on the outskirts. So, anything close to the center is pretty much well to do. Whereas the farther you go out, the more poor it gets, right? So by setting up the distance to be within 5 miles, you know that the girl that you're getting is likely to be firmly middle class, or if not upper middle class, and in many instances they do speak English, surprisingly. So that's good, but it's always good to try to brush up your language skills. And Spanish, I think, is one that has a tremendous return on investment, because everything south of the United States is predominantly Spanish speaking. So it just opens up so many countries to you.
Man, not only south, it's creeping up north, man. Like it's
Yeah.
their fingers are crawling up the United States, surely and certainly. What would you say your favorite place of all time to go in terms of your interests and what you're looking for would be?
Man, it's very hard to say. Because I'm also just a traveler. I'm not so much a tourist. So a lot of the enjoyable experiences I've had have been places where I just met great people. Whereas otherwise the country might have been boring for me. But I met some awesome people, did some cool things, and had a good time. Culture wise, I would probably say Brazil, just because it's a huge melting pot, and socially it's just I mean, they have their problems, of course, with class, and of course race ties into that, in many respects. But just the general attitude towards those things is just kind of live and let live. And Brazilians are just friendly people, man. So I would say that's one of the more enjoyable countries I've been to. Barcelona, probably the smoothest all around city. It's just it's kind of got all the things you want in a place: really good climate, easy to get around, good transport, good food. Nightlife is 7 days a week. You've got beaches, and just a lot of girls, man. Local girls that are tough, but a lot of foreign chicks that are there at any given time, studying, partying, living, or just passing through.
And up to get poked, I see.
Yeah.
So what trips have you endeavored upon this year so far? Do you care to disclose that?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we're just barely into the new year. So in the past year, I started off, did some big trips. I did Hawaii, Norway. Um, what else did I do? I did Hong Kong, Singapore, Thailand, and I was in Brazil for the World Cup.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow, your
Just
passport.
I've been to Norway. What did you think of Norway?
Norway was interesting, man. I came there with a lot of big expectations, man. I've always heard that that's a spot for brothers. Being a dark skinned man is great. It's exotic. Um, it it definitely was an interesting experience. It stands out because
Are we sorry?
what
We're talking Oslo, right?
We're talking Oslo, yes. So
Yeah. Okay. Go
I
ahead.
went to Oslo, and the first thing that struck me was the lack of white people. So, I get there, I get to the city center, and there's just a lot of immigrants, man. A lot of people from Turkey, from Somalia, from all these places, that where they've accepted people as refugees. But eventually, I got settled into my pad and went out, and I stayed in this area called I don't even know the pronunciation still. I think it's called Grunner Loka. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I know. I just stayed in one of those Scandic hotels. It was near. Is it Bigger Charleston or something? Is it Bigger Charleston or something?
Yeah, the gate or something, Jolson Gate or
Yes. Yeah.
something.
Call Johan Gate or something like that.
Yeah, that's
It
like
was.
big pedestrian area, right?
Yeah, and I was on pretty much 2 blocks from the U.S. Embassy, which was looked like
Nice.
Fort Knox with all these cameras and stuff. I don't know why they needed such security in Oslo, but anyways, that's where I was, and I was there in when Al Gore won the Nobel Peace Prize, so '09 maybe.
Oh, okay. So you had a lot of Americans were probably there at the same time.
No, no, but so I think what my point is, these places now, the world is, these places change very quickly because when I went, they were pretty much the reverse. There was mostly white people. There was a few African hookers in the square,
Yeah.
and I didn't see any of these people that you're talking about. And I'll give you another example. 2007, I was in Stockholm, Sweden.
Yeah.
Thought I died and went to heaven. Like it was just crazy, crazy,
Yeah.
crazy. Like it was just like I was just ready to call my parents and say, "This is it. I'm not coming home," or you know what I mean. I was ready to pack my
Yeah.
bag. Went last year, or was it 2014, and just totally different vibes. So like 7 years, these places change, right? The world is changing. So, but yeah,
Okay.
anyways, back to your story. Oslo, what you thought of it, and the ladies, and all that good stuff.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you went back and saw that there is change. So last year, I mean, that was my first time ever being in Scandinavia, and I stayed in this hipster area that I heard was pretty easy to get the bang, right. So my intentions were straightforward from the get go, and I get over there, and there's a lot of parks, man. There's a lot of parks, and this was like around May, so the sun was out. It was fairly warm, and I would just see these blonde-haired girls just in bikinis lying down in the parks by themselves. So
Wow.
yeah, it was nuts because they had just went through this ordeal where 10 months out of the year it's just like gray and cold and no sunlight. So they're just trying to get as much sun as they can get. They're just sun tanning, and I would just go right up to them and start a conversation. And I remember I'm pretty sure I sent Moma some pics of these girls that I talked to, and they were just blown away because nobody does that in Norway. The people there are just so reserved. They don't even talk to strangers. It was interesting in that, like, you could see a blonde girl that would just be hounded in the U.S., right? Just clearly attractive, hot blonde girl walking down the street. You could stop her, ask for directions, just kind of start that indirect game conversation. And she will literally stop in her tracks and really go out of her way to help you out and really think that that's your motive. I mean, they're kind of socially retarded.
They're a bit naive. They're naive, yeah.
They're a bit naive, but
Yeah.
really, really nice. And as far as Norwegian game, what I would recommend, you don't really need to go out before midnight because how these folks get down is they, first of all, it's expensive, very expensive. So most people will pre-game at someone's house, and then they go out to the bar or club at like midnight. And last call is pretty early. It's like 1:30 or 2. So by 12 o'clock though, they're feeling pretty good, and they're not inhibited at all. That's when they become fairly sociable, right, by Norwegian standards. And you just go up to the girl that you want, and if she likes you, she'll pretty much you know offer to get you a drink and then go back to her place. They take you back to their place. So logistics don't really matter in Norway. It's I'd say of all the countries I've been to, women are the most independent. Like feminism has gone farther there than any other country that I've been to, because there's not that hypocrisy that we have in like the United States, where women are fighting to make as much as men, and have the same opportunities, but yet when it comes to dating, they want some of that tradition, right? They want the man to pay, right? Or that's what they expect. You don't have that in Norway. Women really will insist on paying. They will pay. They will buy you drinks, and they are comfortable with you going back to their place.
Yeah,
So
that's a Scandinavian thing. Iceland, same thing. Sweden, same thing. I mean, Sweden, shitty Carlsberg beer in a nightclub was $15, right?
where is this?
In Sweden, Stockholm,
Oh, okay.
$15 US for draft beer in a nightclub.
That's madness, man.
Yeah, like I
Yeah,
was bleeding money.
yeah,
Crazy.
it's expensive, and that's actually the reason I wouldn't suggest guys go out there, because the girls that I was, meeting up with in Norway, they are blonde hair, blue eyes, but they're not like nines or tens or like that, Scandinavian ideal that a lot of guys have in mind. And when you actually do go out there, and for the flight's going to be expensive, accommodations are going to be expensive, eating out, drinking, could easily cost beyond $1,500 for like 3 or 4 days easily.
Yeah, Sweden was hotel what 250, 300 a night.
Right.
You know, like I mean, absolutely. You know what you just said. Yeah, spot on. I really it saddens me, but I really can't justify going out there anymore. But to your point earlier, I mean, some of the stuff you see is just crazy. I mean, we were there Saturday night. It's about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and we just see like three blondes just sitting on a bench and looking bored, right? This is like 3:30 in the morning, and I'm trying to be cool and not to stare, but it's just like crazy. And I mean, like we saw this bomb girl. She just came out of this nightclub wasted, like totally drunk. She fell on the floor, panties showing, everything, and it was just funny. All the
They
guys,
get wild, man. When they drink,
yeah.
that's when all that stuff comes out.
And then like the guys were just standing and looking, and it was just like, damn, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
damn.
Rude
But
boy, did you slip at the sausage?
no, 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 man. I almost got arrested for date rape. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, it's just crazy, crazy.
Well, they funny you mentioned that, man, because someone told me over there that they did have this sort of rape wave or something, largely from Somalian and Muslim men, and that has left the women, or left the women apprehensive for a little while. Like that was something that kind of scared people over there.
Yeah, apparently last year they had some riots, and there's a famous case where these Somalian, I guess, boys, they beat up
Yeah.
some 16-year-old girl and raped her and stuff. So I guess, in a place like that, that spreads all over the country, so people are a little bit
Right.
more
Yeah,
hesitant and,
those
you know.
them lot can tend to do that. I'm not trying to, but I've just you know what I mean. Like sometimes I've just kind of seen certain things, but I mean, I guess it's
I mean,
just
why you
something.
gotta beat her? I mean, like, these girls they're pretty, I don't want to say easy, but I mean, they're a lot easier to deal with than say the Western girls. So, why would
Oh,
you need to
absolutely. Yeah,
why
they
would you
are.
need to beat her face up and rape her? And it affects the whole community, right? Unfortunately, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where have you been this year then, Hencredible? You went to somewhere that I'm quite interested to hear your take on it, and if you had any, I mean, if you were looking for success, and if you did have any success, your just your experiences on there.
Okay. Which place? I've done a little bit of travel. So I was in Panama and Jamaica most recently.
How was Jamaica?
Jamaica was interesting. I think it wasn't as nice as I might have expected. I thought for a place that's so popular, where you've got so many tourists, I thought that the value of what you pay for would at least be decent, but it just isn't. Compared to other Caribbean islands, it's still quite a poor country, and
Give
I
me an
stayed in
example.
Negril, which, well, your accommodation. So I I didn't do the resort thing. I, was there by myself. I stayed in some place that I got off Airbnb. And for the price I was paying, I just didn't feel the amenities were really that nice compared to other places I've been to. So
Sorry, were you in Mo Bay? Where were you? Which part?
in Negril, Negril.
The grill. Okay.
Yeah. So it wasn't really a game trip for me. It was really just R&R. I didn't really spend a lot of time there. There wasn't a lot of a lot of girls that's like down and in party mode. There's not really much of a nightlife scene in the grill. I guess it depends on when you go because it's really just chill bars along the beach. And if you're there during spring break, of course you might see a lot of young girls that are in full on party mode. But when I was there, it was like mostly couples and things like that.
Yeah, it probably depends where you go. If you go to Nick Grill, I think they've situated that part a lot for American Western tourists. So if you don't go in the right season, you're just going to be dealing with locals, and I'm not sure if the locals are as like some islands, some countries have more of a hookup culture. But my theory is that the ones with British influence, the British always repress the sexuality a little bit. Because I went to Trinidad, maybe it's probably now 4 years ago, 3 to 4 years ago, and I went solo. I don't know anyone in Trinidad, nothing. I just did the same thing you did, and I went out, and I just didn't find they were really on that in that sense. I made a few approaches. I didn't go ham because I didn't want no Trini person to lick me on the back of my head with a buckle of carib or something like that. So I just, because I tried it with one chick. She was, what the Jamaicans call it, like a coolie chick. So that means she's mixed,
Dobla,
like,
Dobla,
yeah, dobla or dogla, something like that. So she
Dobla,
she
Dobla.
mixed with Indian and black, but I saw it and I said, hey, let me try it. So I went up and then a man, some next Indian mix guy, he kind of came up and he was kind of like, yeah, boy, I can, something like that. He just kind of stepped in, like his frame was there, and I was just like, I'm here solo. I don't know who this man is here with, so let me just chill right now. So I didn't personally find that. That might translate to the other islands depending on where you go. So I don't know. That's just a
You
theory
know
of
what?
mine.
That's generally the vibe down there. I just returned from Barbados last week, and it's a lot of bars. Little rum shack bars, and in
Yeah.
terms of a nightclub, I think Jamaica, it would be Kingston would be the place where you would find that, but most people aren't going to go to Kingston. But
Right. Right.
but along, Mo Bay, Negril, Ocho Rios, it's generally quiet unless there's like a reggae sunsplash or something like that. And whereas Barbados, everybody, old and young, they're telling me to come back for Crop Over, which is the festival and carnival in July. But generally throughout the year, those places are pretty quiet, right? So
Yeah, and I feel that Jamaicans are. I mean, it's a very sexual culture for sure, man. I think most Jamaican women grow up getting catcalled left and right from Jamaican men, and it's kind of known as like more of a macho sort of Caribbean island. And the guy who rented me out my place on Airbnb, he had a motorcycle, and I was hungry when I arrived, so he was like, "Yeah, come sit in the back, and I'll take you down to the restaurant down the hill." And as we're on his motorcycle, man, he sees this woman on the street, and he's just like, "Me want to lick ya," and that's just like how they talk to women. I mean, that's just I've seen that. I saw that same behavior in a lot of other men throughout the island, and it's known for that. Jamaica is a very macho, sexual kind of culture.
And this is what I mentioned before because I grew up in a Jamaican part in the UK, that I mentioned that the guys bring that style wherever they go. So that road game, me growing up, I've seen that. And if I didn't implement that at a certain age, like let's say puberty, they'll say, yo, you're about to man, like gal. So they would say that. So you have that
Yeah,
pressure. They did say that. So it was an additional pressure to really, do that kind of stuff. So I could definitely believe that they're always on game. What I mean? They're always on, at least they're spitting something. They'll spit at anyone. What I mean? Police officer, lawyer, solicitor, etc., etc. So, yep, I could believe that. So, tell me a little bit. You also went to Hong Kong. We had, a special guest yesterday who probably call him, I could say he's an expert of China. He's very, very well fluent very well spoken in the Chinese culture, etc., etc. And he kind of listed places that he would say that a black person would get a good reception if they were going there to meet some people, meet some lizards, and so on and so forth. So you going
Yeah.
to Hong Kong, can you
Yes.
break it down a little bit in terms of your experiences?
Yeah, man. It was definitely one of my most enjoyable experiences as a traveler. It truly is a world-class city. You know, it's a center of finance. And as far as women, my homeboy, before I went, he connected me with a rich Hong Kong chick who he had met in his travels. So when I got there, I connected with her. And then it was really funny. We went out, hung out, and she was saying how she had a meeting early in the morning. So she's like, "Do you want to come with me back to your place in a cab, or do you want to just explore a little bit more?" And at the time, I really wanted to explore a little bit more because I saw like a lot of white girls all throughout the area we were in. There was like a lot of bars and clubs, and I was like, "Man, let me see what I can do here." And we split our ways, and then I went to this little plaza where I saw people just sitting down, mostly white folks, and I went to sit down and kind of gather my bearings. I was exhausted, had a 16-hour nonstop flight from Chicago, and I brought out my cell phone, and then police entered this little plaza, and they came right to me, and they were asking for me to stand up, and they searched me. They wanted my documents, and I pulled out my U.S. passport. Now, normally that's an end of story. You got an American passport, they're not fucking with you. But in this case, they wanted to continue searching me, so they did that. And I had this like little prescription bottle. It was unmarked though, and it's something that I take with me in my travels. It has stuff like airborne. If I'm gonna I fly on planes a lot, so I try to take things like airborne, so I don't get sick, or melatonin, so I can sleep right as I'm traveling. And they saw a pill in there that I've had for a long time that they thought was ecstasy, even though it wasn't. So they have a hard rule in Asia and places like Singapore and Hong Kong about certain drugs, right? So they said, you're gonna come with us to the precinct, and they put me in a paddy wagon, and none of these dudes speak English well, and they take me to jail. It's my first night in Hong Kong, and they take me to a room. They strip search me. I mean, I'm talking my ass crack, man, my nuts, and then they put me in this small cell, and they tell me that I'm gonna have to wait there. They're gonna have to send that stuff to a lab to find out exactly what it is, and then in the morning, I think this was a Friday or Saturday night, so they had to wait till the morning to for an American embassy staff member to come to this precinct so they can complete the paperwork, and then they'd let me go, but I'd have to come back to Hong Kong to court within a couple weeks, or else they were going to issue a warrant out for my arrest. So I'm waiting in this shit for like hours, and they have my phone. I can't go on the internet, can't contact anyone. So I came up with the idea. I was like, what if I told you that that's something my doctor prescribed to me? You know what I mean? And they said okay. So they gave me back my phone. I didn't have a local SIM card though, so I had to bum the Wi-Fi network off someone's phone. Um, and what I did was contact all my friends on WhatsApp. And I don't know, do you guys know about this dude, Joff Superman? He's on the forum.
Yeah, he's from DC as well, right?
Yeah, so he's one of my WhatsApp contacts, and he responded to me fast. So I'm like, yo, you won't believe this, man. I'm in Hong Kong in jail, and I need you to say you're my doctor, and you need to come up with a you need to come up with a letter in like 30 minutes, dog, and email it to this dude.
Yeah,
And he's like, "What the fuck? Of course, man. What the fuck are you talking about, man?" But yo, he's like, "Okay, okay, give me the information." So the good thing was I gave him my real doctor's name. So um, and the time difference, my doctor was already out of his office, so I couldn't contact him. That's why I had to reach out to my friends. And basically, I gave him the information. put up an email, sent it to the Hong Kong Police Department, and said, I've known this guy for years. I gave him all this prescription stuff, and they they sent a team of guys to go on Google to find out if this was a real doctor or not. They searched his name. If they couldn't find him, I wouldn't have been let go. So the good thing is I gave him a real name, and my doctor has a web presence, and they let me out of there, man.
What? But if he emailed, what name came with the email? They didn't really look at that. Like it's like
No,
Jell-off
I told him to
Superman.
make up a new email address.
Okay, okay, okay. Damn,
So
you
it was
guys,
very tedious, man.
you guys are quick-witted, man. The African connection there.
Well, Joff is kind of on the same wavelength, man. He's about his bread and traveling and all that good stuff. So it didn't catch him too off guard. And the next day, I told this girl, the Chinese girl that I was acquainted with, about what happened. She felt really bad. Came right to my room, and I ended up fucking her like right then and there. And I think I showed you that pic too, Moma. I showed you a pic of the
Yeah,
Chinese girl that was
nakedness too.
topless. Yeah, and she
Naked.
she was very well off. She paid for my entire trip, basically, man. All the sightseeing stuff we did in Hong Kong, Victoria Peak, Ritz Carlton, the highest bar in the world. I mean, she just insisted on paying, and that was my first experience with a Chinese girl, with like a pure Chinese girl, and man, she got really attached, man. Like the entire time, she just would go into her purse and pay for everything.
And you were giving it them inches, man. Inches.
My man, they're killing it, girl.
Giving it
So
the banana.
so what was this all about? Like, did you get any sense of what that was about?
About the Hong Kong police.
Yes.
Yeah, so they have anything that looks or resembles ecstasy, any pill that might be kind of a neon type of color, they just get very paranoid about. So, and if you're traveling with anything, any, airborne or, melatonin or anything like that, make sure you leave that shit at the hotel. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, but
Don't
why you though? Is it like what? Let's get the black guy. What? Like why you?
that I told him that, man. I said, look, you guys only came up to me. I'm the only black guy. I'm like, it's so obvious. And, at the same time, though, you do have cats in Hong Kong, them African brothers that are out there, kind of, I mean, they just somehow make it over there. And they're the type of cats that they see you, they're like, hey, man, what do you want? You want girls? You want this or that, right?
Probably my
So you see those
Nigerian
type of
brothers,
dudes.
man.
Yeah, you see some of those dudes, and I don't know, they may have issues with the police, and they might have saw me, and despite how I'm dressed or anything, I'm a dark skinned brother, and they probably thought I was, one of them dudes, and just came right up to me. But usually the U.S. passport should kind of be the end all be all. But it was surprising that they took it further. But they got really upset when I told them that they stopped me because I was black. They really did not like that.
He took
Yeah.
offense.
You know
They
what?
did.
I actually have a similar story. So when I was living in London, I had a girlfriend in Czech Republic, but she was close to the German border.
Yeah.
So to get there, I had to fly London to Nuremberg and then take a train, hour and a half train across the Czech border.
Hmm.
So the first time I went, Sunday afternoon, I'm coming back. So took a train from Czech Republic across the German border, and then I had to uh, come off the train and like go onto another train that would take me straight to Nuremberg. So Sunday afternoon, all these German families are on the platform. It's 3:30, and I'm there eating my hot dog, and obviously just relaxing. And then these two undercover police officers came up to me,
Hmm.
and they're like, one's looking at me like kind of maybe they're expecting me to run, and I'm like, well, what the fuck is this, right? So, um, they asked me where I came from, where I'm going, and I was just totally surprised because this I've never experienced before, and I gave them my passport, and I have a European passport and I have a Canadian passport, and I gave them the European passport, and they seemed disappointed. So I noticed they always also stopped another guy who was sort of Turkish looking.
Yeah.
And, everybody on the platform is basically looking at me and looking at this guy. And I guess, they thought I was, not to put down anybody, but they thought I was some African guy trying to sneak into the country, right?
Right.
So when they saw the passport, they seemed surprised. They saw the British flag or whatever it's on the passport, and they sort of just took off. So then it actually happened to me a second time. So when I went back, it happened again, and two different people, and I was ready for it. So
Yeah.
basically, I had the hot dog in my mouth again. And by the way, the hot dogs in Germany are fantastic. So they're not like the ones that we get this side of the world. But anyways, the second
Yeah.
time it happened to me, I had the hot dog, and I basically had a shit-eating grin on my face. I gave them my wallet. I go, yeah, help yourself. And there was a lady. She was looking at me, making sure that I didn't run, and the guy was going through with the wallet. And then basically, I said something sarcastically. I said, "Oh, did you find what you're looking for?" And grabbed my wallet back and just went back to eating my hot dog. So, your story really, that's an amazing story. And,
Yeah.
fortunately, I didn't
It's
have to go to jail, but, these are the things that, this is what happens around the world. And I mean, when you travel, you run into these things, right?
Rude Boy, where did you say this was in Germany? Yeah.
This is on the border by Czech Republic. So I was waiting for a train to go to Nuremberg.
Okay. Okay.
But I
well,
will say on the flip side, some of the baddest girls that have scoped me have been on some of those trips. I had two Lufthansa blondes, basically, they had their tongue out at me as I was in the airport in Nuremberg. Basically, I was standing there and I was, I had some douchebag T-shirt I was wearing, showing the muscles and all that stuff. And I turned around and these girls were like pretty much gawking at me. And then when I turned, unfortunately, there was a glass separating us, right? And these girls were looking, and I was like, "Wow, okay, that's I've never done an airline hostess. I don't know, any of you guys got that flag? I haven't, but
Airline
you know
hostess?
what,
Not
man?
yet. No.
I,
no.
I have gotten the airline hostess flag. Um, it actually resulted in benefits in terms of flying for very cheap or free.
Was
Um,
it in the Mile High Club though?
not not in the Mile High Club. I'm still on the lookout for that one. But what Rude Boy is saying, that's the same thing that happened to me on my first trip to Europe, and it was really eye opening, man, because that's just something that could not happen in America without a major lawsuit and Al Sharpton, right? Where you're just approached. Like in my case, I was on a train from Germany to from Frankfurt to Amsterdam, and what do you call it? The As soon as we crossed the Dutch border, the border people on the Dutch side get on the train, and they only come to me in my cabin. I'm the only black guy. They come right to me,
Oh wow.
and they ask for my passport, and I show it to them, and then they leave. They don't even talk to anybody else. They just get off the train. I'm like, what the fuck was that?
Now they're raw. They're raw.
Yeah, they raw. And then I went from there to Paris, and then when I went from Paris to Germany back to Frankfurt, the same thing happened again with the German guy. But I forgot about the first experience. So the German guy gets on the train, he comes up to me, gets off, and then I was like, okay, if this happens again, yeah, I'm gonna say something. So the next time I'm going from Germany to Switzerland, and it happened again, and I said, can I ask you guys, why are you stopping me when there's other people on the train? And they looked at each other for a while, and you could tell they were struggling to come up with an answer. They were speaking to each other in German, and really trying to think of what they would say in response. And then they said, it's not a personal thing. It's not us that we're not singling you out. It's a policy where we've got refugees coming from other countries here illegally. And I said, well, you can't really say that the other people on this train, some of whom are white, they might be illegal too. They might be from countries in Eastern Europe that, are not part of the EU framework, and, they're just coming here illegally. And, he didn't really have an answer for that, but it really opened my eyes and made me think like, man, like, it really is different outside of America,
It is.
all this stuff you're hearing about how great Europe is and the quality of life. Well, if you're black, it could be different, right? You could have a different experience, and you're never really European. I think you know what I mean. You
Yeah, I mean,
might,
I've mentioned that. I mean, I've mentioned that a lot of people have said Europe, 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 but I grew up in Europe and I've made trips, not many, to the mainland, and I really didn't. I wasn't that impressed because, to be honest, in Europe, England, I would say, is probably the best country as a black man to live in Europe. Once you go in there, I'm talking in terms of social awareness. Like once you go there, I find that when I say Europe, once you go to the mainland, because I think I consider Great Britain, because it's an island, it has a different philosophy from the rest of Europe. But once you go to the mainland Europe, I find that people there almost they accept themselves as second class citizens. So the fact that you
yeah,
told those guys what you're doing, it surprised them because the African cats that live there feel that they're so happy to get there that you could do anything. You could put your hand in their pants and they're not gonna say nothing.
yeah,
Because when I went to France, I got experiences. I was like, what's this going on? I asked my friend because I wasn't really fluent in French, and there was a time we were driving, and we were big guys. Like all of us were like similar height. It's two of me, two. There was three of us. Like my friend's also Nigerian descent. The other one is Jamaican descent. So there's three of us. We're in the car. Police just stopped us. They're like blah, 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 something in French, and they said, "Oh, you guys will play the basketball." And I was like, "That's so bait. Like you saying that, like you're trying to make that as if that's you're trying to smoothen the fact that you just stopped us just for driving. It's not like we took a corner crazy. We're just driving normally. You just pull over, oh, you guys, you played the basketball. And I was like, really? Is that how it goes? And I just thought to
yeah.
myself, I said, okay, okay, that's cool. That's how you guys run it in on the mainland of Europe. That's cool. So yeah, when people talk all this and that about Europe being this mecca, I'm like, it really depends on what you look like. I hate to bring it up, but it's a fact. It's definitely a
I agree,
fact.
man. And
No,
it's
agreed. It
funny.
can't be denied. I mean, obviously, Casanova has given us a story, and he's had the same experiences I've had in Germany, it seems, and that region. And yeah, the girls are down, but I don't want to deal with that bullshit. I don't deal with that bullshit in Canada. Some of the bullshit that goes on in the States. I mean, I go to the border and I shop, and the American Border Patrol, they're asking all these stupid questions, and sometimes I
Right.
have to like grab my dad in his thigh, like say, like chill, chill, like because I know he's ready to, he's Jamaican, right? So he's fiery, right? So I just answer the questions, and sometimes they'll ask you, who bought your car and all the kind of fuckery questions, but yeah,
Yeah.
this stage of the game, I don't want to deal with that. I just want to, no one, in Canada, one of the good things about Canada, we don't have that. No one, it's a different kind of racism. But anyways, we're not here. We try not to dwell on that too much. But yeah, Casanova or Momo, anything else?
No, that was that was it. That was it's very interesting to hear your stories. Incredible, your adventures and so on and so forth. It's very very motivating. To someone like myself and other listeners, I'm certain, to drive them to do that. I think Mexico would be something on my list because at this point, I don't like to spend too much to travel across to Europe. And to be very honest, I mean, you guys know my preference. The only time I really cross over the Atlantic is when I'm hitting Africa. I mean, I want to go to Ghana at some point. I want to go to Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, check out the black lizards. I'm not that interested in white lizards. If they come, if I get the layup, I'm going to take the layup. I've always said that, but I'm not going to fight through traffic as I perceive
Yeah.
it to get my 2 points. So Mexico appeals to me because it's pretty close, and from what you're saying and from the pictures that you've shown to me, it's definitely a stimulant. Last question I had: you also went to Panama. What's the makeup of the people in Panama? Is it black? Is it like DR, Dominican Republic? Is that what they kind of look like, or they fare a little bit more towards the black, the African side? What's Panama like?
Panama is a, big mixture. So kind of like DR. I find though that DR, the average is better looking. Panama. you've got your typical mestizo where you've got the folks from a mixture of Europe and indigenous. Then you've got a substantial black population and kind of a mixture of all those different groups. There's been a Jamaican community that's been there for generations. That's kind of the bulk of the Black Panamanian ancestry. So these are folks that came down to build the canal. So you've had people from there, from Barbados, from Trinidad, people from all over the world came down to help build the canal and stayed there. And the thing about Panama too is that it's just a major international business destination. So you've got really good infrastructure. In a lot of cases, it's similar to what you might find in America. A lot of skyscrapers, a lot of malls, and things that are very upscale because the world has a stake in seeing a stable and prosperous Panama because so much of world trade passes through that canal, and it's always been a haven for rich people to kind of park their money in the banks that are based there. There's a lot of tax-friendly banking policies, so it's a very diverse place. But as far as talent, you're pretty much your average local chick is not that cute. She's it's still Central America, but then the other option is of course P for P. They've got a lot of Colombian women there, banging Colombian women, but this isn't a P for P type of discussion. And then you've got elites like I haven't sent you some pics from there, but there was a girl that I met at a club there who was working at the door. One of the finest white chicks I've ever met. She's full Panamanian, but ancestry wise is from Austria. Her parents moved there like two generations ago, and I guess they hadn't mixed with the locals, man. But she spoke with an American accent, English and an American accent. Has never been to the States, and the people that I saw at that venue, which were elite Panamanians, they had some talent, man. So I would say it's definitely worth a visit in terms of just the experience and being there. It's still a cool country to be at. But when I first went there a few years ago, I hooked up with a Swiss girl that I met there and who I ended up traveling with to Colombia. My adventures in South America were kind of spontaneous. Like I hadn't gone there with the intent to travel the whole continent. I had a 3-week ticket to come back to Panama from Colombia, and I just never turned back. I was like, "This is a blast." I'm having a good time. She taught me how to travel. Stay in overnight buses to save a night on lodging. How to find cheap accommodations, and after that, I was hooked. I wanted to keep that going because I said, if I come back to the States, and I get back to working and all that stuff, that full time hassle, I might never have the chance to come down here and spend months at a time, right? To really just explore. It's really far and more expensive to come down to South America. So at the time, I just decided to keep on going, and I had a blast. But yeah, in Panama, if you're gonna go there, a place I recommend is not Panama City. You're gonna have to pass through Panama City, so definitely check it out. But for game, you definitely want to hit up this spot called Bocas del Toro. So it's an island chain in the Caribbean Sea, and it's pretty smooth. Like you can, I've put up pictures of it on the forum before. I lived on this beach house with no roads, and had my own boat dock, and I would like call a water taxi. I just whistle, and they'd come for like 25 cents. They take me to the main island or
Oh,
to
wow.
yeah
Wow.
to a different club. It was real cheap. Tourists, mainly backpackers, but easy chicks. I mean, they're there in like full on party mode, and
Which
they might be traveling for months. So it
so
doesn't take much game to get them into bed.
are you hitting other backpackers or are you actually getting locals?
I did hang out with locals. I
Because
did.
I always like to hit a local because me hitting another backpacker to me doesn't You know, it's like me going to Panama and getting a hot dog. I'm like, give me the local food, even if my stomach turns. I want it local. So I always try to sample the local, even if they busted. As long as I get that, as long as the boner test passed. For me, I'm just saying me. Once the binary, if it switches from 0 to 1, it's on. So if I go to Panama, I just kind of want to know like how are the locals, and I like them black, so I'll go for the black one. You know what I mean? So how how are they in terms of
With the booty. With the booty.
oh, if they got the booty, yeah, I'll just throw that paper bag over the face. I'm good to go, man.
Man, it varies, but I would say, based on places I've been, you're better served by DR, because the DR you're gonna have a lot more consistency when it comes to the average girl, and the quality, and how down the fuck they are. DR is one of the best places, for value. Panama is not. It still leaves something more to be. It leaves more to be desired. I'll put it that way.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. So rude boy, anything to add to this?
Uh, I guess my last question is like, you know, Casanova, you're obviously, Black American. I think even Kai yesterday was trying to say that, we're foreign and if we had this and that and, the legs part easier because of who we are and our backgrounds. But, advice you would give, to your brethren, your fellow Black Americans or fellow Americans, like
That are going for
who are
what?
maybe some of them are struggling. They're in a situation. Maybe they're in California. Maybe they're in deep south, and they're just relying on online game, and things aren't working well for them. I mean, maybe what could they do
Or
at
if,
home? Or obviously, it's easy to grab the passport and travel, but you can't travel 52 weeks of the year, right? So. Advice. I mean, what's worked for you? I mean, maybe in terms of career or things like that. Any advice that you can bestow upon them and myself and Momar.
Yeah, definitely, man. I would start by saying, really, really think about what it is that you want, and you got to want something. That's where the motivation comes from. You got to want something. You have to be hungry for something, and it's good if you can have more than one thing, because it helps you become dynamic. And once you have that in your mind, and you can visualize, having that thing that you want, that's what really does get the ball rolling. And really try to avoid sources of information that are negative, because there's already enough of that around. You don't need more of that to kind of reinforce um, any kind of insecurity or doubts you may have about going after what you want. And you know that's really important. And then go and seek out information and people. I think if you can find good people to provide you information and to point you in the right direction, that really is more than half the battle. And you have to stay persistent. You have to keep on trying. Nothing just happens overnight. You're not going to find a lot of high quality girls just cruising the internet. You know what I'm saying? Good looking girls are usually always in some type of social circle. They're always socially relevant, so they don't need to get on the internet and make themselves available. There's always going to be men around them. So you have to become a high value man, and a man of action, and spend less time analyzing and debating and pondering, and more time executing. I think there's a lot of guys that have the right information in mind, the right approach, but they're not actually going out and seeing it executed. And that's very important, because that's where you really do the learning, is once you execute it in action. um, then you can learn from what you did right and what you did wrong. Failure is one of the best lessons that are out there for anybody. So you kind of have to go out there and fail, and continue experiencing that rejection, because that's what's going to build the confidence and the experience. Experience is really what separates the men from the boys. And I mean that's all I'd say. I mean, if it's like anything else in life, if you want to have a good job, you have to develop the skills. You have to find out where you can provide value, and go out and get that experience, humble yourself, become a student at first, and get the experience, and then soon you'll be in the driver's seat. And it's the same with working out. You got to put in the time, you've got to put in the work, you got to make sure your diet's right, that you're sleeping well, and that you're doing the right exercises. And then over time you're going to see the results. And the same with travel. I mean, just take a trip. Don't ask, a million times where's the right place to go, because anyone who's traveled enough will tell you that there's just some trips where you're going to be airballing. You're going to spend a lot of money. You're not going to get the value that you thought you would get. You may not smash, or you may not smash as much as you thought you would, or with the kind of girl you thought you would. That's just something you're going to have to go through. It's just part of the lifestyle. So if you really want the lifestyle, you have to embrace the good and the bad.
That's great, great advice. And even that you mentioned with working out, because I met Hencredible, and he's a swollen guy, very very wide. His frame is very wide, so he looks like he could throw a pretty devastating right or left hand. So you know what I mean, and that didn't come overnight. As we discussed, he's put in that work. So I definitely fully concur with what you're saying, and you even got me thinking. You know what I mean? Like my first trip, which is what got me onto the forum. I pretty much winged it because I was asking questions and people were not specific. They were only specific after I came back and said what had happened. And they're like, yeah, 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 that's what happens. That's what tends to happen. I'm like, yeah, you're saying it now, but when I asked you before, you refuse to stick to any particular plan. So definitely, you've got to go out, you gotta do those things. Some people are thinking me and Rude Boy, we just open our mouth and the girls start spreading like margarine, and that's not the case. I go through a lot of stuff I've got to go through. People have told me that, but it's not. It's never that simple. That's just what they sell and they package to you. You
Right.
still got to do the dance. You've still got to go through and do the dance. And after a while, the way you dance, you make it look like you're natural at it. But you had to put in your 10,000 hours of trial and error before things started to look smooth to the outsider.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I mean, to that I make hey, I still make rookie mistakes. I'm in my 40s. I make rookie mistakes. The other day, it's about a year ago, I was in the mall on a Friday night. Again, I wasn't probably not as clean as I should be. I try hard now to when I leave the house, I try and look the best or clean at least. Some days, I used to let it go. But then anyways, I went to the mall Friday night and I needed a new cell phone. So I went to the local cellular shop, and I was in line for a good hour. And there was this lady in front of me, so Persian lady, older lady, but not bad looking. And over the course of the hour, we were chatting and we were talking, laughing, and she was very friendly, and I'm checking her out. So then, basically, I think we were the two last customers. The store closed. It was like 5 after 9, and I waited outside. And then she came up to me and she's like laughing and talking. And I think this was actually might have been my first Insta date. So I instigated. There was a restaurant in the mall. And I said, you know what? After that, let me buy you a drink. So she was shocked. She was loving it. And we went to the restaurant and we were drinking wine and we getting to know each other. She was a real estate broker and she lived alone, had her own house. I think the daughter was in university away at school. She was divorced or whatever, and she was more than smashable. And I just said something stupid like she showed me a picture, and I said something about, "Oh, you look older in this picture," or something like that, and it was like dropping the glass. It was just stupid. It was just a rookie mistake, and and it was just like, damn, I didn't hear from the girl again, and it was just I called and I have the business card. So I mean, what I'm saying is we still make mistakes, right? We still fall off the horse, and um, like you said, you just have to keep putting in the hits and the approaches, and you keep trying, right?
yeah, absolutely. And it's human nature to make mistakes. There's things that are going to go wrong. I liken it to sports where you could be a very talented athlete, right? But you still need a right coach, right? To bring out your ability to its potential. It took Michael Jordan 6 years to get a ring. It wasn't until you put Phil Jackson in charge to, get the other pieces in order that, he finally saw success. And there's some days you're gonna go to the gym and you might not have a good workout. But there's always the next day where you can do what you didn't do the day before. So there's always more women out there that you're gonna have to talk to, to continue on your path to success.
Yeah, and what you said with sports, it averages out because sometimes Michael Jordan's field goal percentage was low. He might have a day where he's 56, and another day he's in the late or maybe early 40s, like 41% field goal percentage, but he wants 30 points. So I liken that to some who go out and they keep shooting till they get their point. So it's like you keep going out, you keep shooting till you get your lizard. You know what I mean? And I've seen guys
Yeah.
that are like that, and those are the guys that I truly admire because I'm actually not at that I don't give a damn level. And again, I also say the Jamaicans, and I always speak of that because I'm very familiar with them. I find that that is what they've done. I've seen guys go out, they could look anyhow. They could be their hair could be askew, nappy headed, picky head. That's what we call them in London, picky head. So your hair ain't combed. They could be any look, but they keep spitting, and it just doesn't phase them. They're always spitting. So those guys who have the stamina to always spit, I think that takes precedence even over strategy, just those raw numbers. So if you talk about game and all that, just to have that mindset, that's a big thing. You know what I mean? But yeah,
Yeah, that's a better analogy. And when a guy complains, the first thing you got to ask is what has he done? And oftentimes when you find out when you investigate what they're doing, you realize they're not really putting in the work. They want the easy results, right? They want to sit on the internet, click on their mouse button and get a good girl. That's it. It's going to take more than that. You're going to have to put yourself in situations where you're going to be around those type of women. You have to be engaged, you have to be very active. And it's not easy, but nothing worth having is going to come easy, right? You're going to have to put in the work. And over time, when you have that consistency, the thing, you brought up Michael Jordan, or we both talked about him. No one is going to question his will to win. He probably wanted to win better than anybody else on that court, you know, and that's how you've got to be in your own life. You've got to really want it to see the results. You've really got to ask yourself, how bad do you want it? Are you really trying? And I think the forum is a great place to get information, to connect with like-minded people. But are you spending too much time on it? That's something people need to ask themselves. How much time are you actually executing versus just analyzing and taking in information? I think they should work in tandem.
I agree. You're totally on point. In fact, action should take maybe slightly more precedence than the analysis. When you're retired, then throw your numbers up and let's all crunch them and say, "Hey, I did it." But you're not retired now, so put in that work. You know what I mean? Put in the work, and I totally concur with you on that.
Me too.
Okay, well, I guess we can, conclude it because we could flow for hours. It's such a pleasure. It's such a pleasure talking to you, Incredible. Like I just like your energy. I mean, I like the energy of everyone that's come on, and I like your energy because you've been to so many different places. Like every time, I mean, I've been speaking to you outside of just this engagement that we've had here, and you always will just send me pictures because the thing that just sets you aside, you just send pictures. Moma, look, bam. I'm like, oh shit. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh well, I went to this place and it was great. It's like you'll have a few words, then like 10 pictures to like 5 words. I'm like, well, I can't question that. So the HK Hong Kong situation, yeah, I saw it, and there was some naked pics. So I know ain't nobody, you know what I mean. And he was, what I'm saying, not he was like, not that they were both there, but he was, involved. So I know that, what I mean, he's putting in that work. But it's just so great to just draw off that energy, what I mean, draw off your experiences and so on and so forth. So it's been such a pleasure, what I mean, having you on board and just listen to your tales. And yeah, we'd probably definitely get you back, sometime in the future, and analyze different portions, because we want to talk about, we want to talk about fashion, where to shop for muscular guys, what type of clothes might fit well. Rude Boy can attest to that, and they even talk about workout techniques. So some guys in the forum say some stuff that just makes me realize they don't really work out.
You're right. Yeah.
Straight up, they don't work out. They just say some stuff like, "Oh yeah, I did this. I drank 8 gallons of milk and did a push up." And girls don't care if you're buff or you're slim. I'm like, bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's
My
funny because
body fat is 20%.
Huh? What's that?
with the workouts,
Yeah.
I've been doing CrossFit now since November, and I know it's got some kind of controversy attached to it with the manner of working out, and for some guys the price tag. But for me, the value has just been incredible, because the one thing you do get out of CrossFit is you're going to get a serious workout every time you show up. Because not only are the movements high volume in an hour long class, but you've also got that group there, right? You're working out with other people, and that group dynamic, it really pushes you in ways that you just did not think, you could not have imagined you'd be able to do that much in that amount of time otherwise. So, for me, I know that as long as I go, I'm going to get a good ass workout, and then the results are going to come. So that's something I'm happy to talk to you guys about at some point. Maybe come back and get more into that. But I think that's key, because a lot of guys, and I've been in the same boat, where you just kind of hit a wall in your workouts, right? And it starts getting boring, and you kind of want something more. And in my case, CrossFit has been great. So that's all I'll say on that for right now.
Cool. 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 All right. Well, I guess we're gonna conclude it. It's been running for a while now, and again, thank you very much
Thank you, Tony. It's been a blast.
coming on.
This was last minute, by the way. We did this off the cuff, no notes and everything. So this is
Yeah,
quite impressive.
we freestyled this. We just threw
Ah.
we threw a beat on and we just rode the beat. I might come in on the next one, start spitting some rhymes, some bars.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, guys, man. You two are both fun and like-minded, and it makes it much easier to have a conversation. It's just like getting on the phone and talking to a friend.
Yeah,
Definitely. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I see when you joined the forum, just quickly here, you've been to Vancouver. Any plans to come to Toronto? I'd love to hang with you too.
Yeah, man, that's something in the works. I'm gonna wait for the winter to pass through. But Canada, man, I like it, man. My favorite place, of course, is Montreal, but Toronto has good diversity, good vibes. The race kind of relations are a little bit better than the U.S., I think, and it's a place I want to give another chance. I want to come back and kind of see
Yeah,
how
you
it's
do well
changed.
with your frame and your attitude. You do well.
Rude
Whatever.
boy, why you torturing the man for asking him to come
Oh,
to?
shut
Oh,
the
let
fuck
me
up.
meet him in Burlington, man. You're trying to torture the man. The man's a good man. You're trying to kill the man, leading him into what? Toronto.
That's a warrior, man.
Come on, man. He's done.
Have you been to Montreal?
He's done his time.
I've done Montreal. Yeah, I've done Montreal.
I've done
Yeah,
I've done
that's a
Montreal
great
several
place.
times as well. I love Montreal. I love the looks. I love the layout. I love that. I love the fashion, everything. The presentation in Montreal is just stunning. So I've been to Montreal quite a few times myself, at least 5 or 6 times in the time frame that I lived in Toronto, and I went there before the forum as well, because it's Montreal's been known for time.
Yeah, I'm considering living there for short term, for like a month in May or something like that. So I'll keep you guys posted, man. If I'm
Okay,
out
we'll hook
there,
up there then for sure. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
All right, all right. Well, let's conclude this. It was great once again. Signing off, ending it, and until next time, peace.
All
Peace.
right. Peace.